What I believe, the Today and Tomorrow series by Haldane. Let's get this lit. Haldane's got some tea on what I'm feeling about today and tomorrow, fam. We got D.B. Dallas by Haldane, Science and the Future, like where we at with the future of science. Icarus by Haldane, the future of science. Bertrand Russell's got some wild thoughts on what's next for science. Mongol in Our Midst by F.G. Cruikshank, M.D., Fully Ild and All That Jazz Wireless Possibilities by Prof. A.M. Lowe, with 4 diagrams, no cap. Tantalus by F.C.S. Schiller. The Future of Man. Bro Narcissus by Gerald Hurd, An Anatomy of Clothes, get it? Callinicus by J.B.S. A Defense of Chemical Warfare. What's Good? Passing of the Phantoms by C.J. Patton Memedy, Say D. Ephra A.I. Some Deep Thoughts on the Future Quo Vadimus by E. Forniadalby, D.C. F. Inst. P. Some Glimpses of the Future You Feel. Conquest of Cancer by Hate Wu. As right MSc, RCS, Saving Lives One Cancer at a Time, Lysistrata by Anthony M. Ludovici, Woman and the Future, Let's Get Lit What I Believe by Bertrand Russell, F. His Thoughts on What He Believes in Life, Hypatia by Dora Russell the Hun. Mrs. Bertrand Russell, A Tribute to Her Wife, Perseus of Dragons by A.F. Scott Stokes, M.A. Slaying Dragons and All That Evocation of Genius by Alan Porter. Let's Get Creative Future of Sex by Rebecca West. What's Good with Sex, fam? Asclepius by F.G. Cruikshank, M.D. Disease and the Man, Keep It Real, E.P. Dutton Company is the real MVP. Dropping New Haldane Books Left and Right, What I Believe by Bertrand Russell, illustration, New York, EP. Dutton Company, 681 Fifth Avenue, copyright 1925 by EP. Dutton Company, all rights reserved, first printing, April 1925, second printing, June 1925, third printing, June 1925, fourth printing, March 1926, printed in the United States of America. Preface in this little book. Haldane's trying to say what he thinks on a man's place in the universe and his possibilities for achieving the good life. In Icarus he expressed his fears. In the following pages he's expressed his hopes. The inconsistency is only apparent. Except in astronomy, mankind ain't achieved the art of predicting the future. In human affairs, we can see there are forces making for happiness and forces making for misery. We don't know which will prevail, but to act wisely we got to be aware of both. January 1st, 1925, Table of Contents chap. Page I Nature and Man 1, I The Good Life 19, Immoral Rules 35, If Salvation Individual and Social 55, V Science and Happiness 65, What I Believe, Chapter I Nature and Man is a part of nature, not something contrasted with nature. His thoughts and his bodily movements follow the same laws that describe the motions of stars and atoms. The physical world is a page to man larger than it was thought to be in Dante's time, but not so large as it seemed 100 years ago. Both upward and downward, both in the large and in the small, science seems to be reaching limits. It is thought that the universe is of finite extent in space, and that light could travel round it in a few 100 millions of years. It is thought that matter consists of electrons and protons, which are of finite size, and of which there are only a finite number in the world. Probably like 2 sec. Changes ain't always hella continuous, fam. They come in jerks, which is like never smaller than a lil bit bigger than nothing. We got these laws that govern change, and they're all about some basic principles. Bruh. It's like, if we know the past and present, we can totes figure out the future when it comes to the world you feel. Physical science is on the verge of being done. And honestly, it's whack. Given how electrons and protons move, we're just left with geography. G. It's all about where these things were in different parts of history, right? We got to keep collecting facts till we figure out the whole story. Maybe one day we can write M all down in a big book and have a calculating machine to help us find the deets at other times. Lol. It's hella boring, fam. Like, imagine climbing this gnarly mountain and getting to the top only to find it's just a random restaurant serving ginger beer surrounded by fog, but with Wi-Fi. You know? Maybe back in the day multiplying stuff was lit or something. But for real, human is part of this whole world thing. We're made up of electrons and protons. Same as everything else, bruh. Some people say physiology can't be reduced to physics, but that's just a hater move. If you ask me, our thoughts are like tied to the brain's track system, fam. It's all about roads and railways. Know what I'm saying? And our brains need energy to think, like we need fuel for the car or something. If this is true, then a single electron can't think. Well, that's just wild talk. Same thing goes for when you die, fam. Your thoughts don't survive, 'cause that means your brain's all messed up. Science ain't got nothing to say about God or immortality. Bruh. Those are like Christian dogmas or whatever. But we can totes agree with Buddhism on this one. We in the West are all about thinking God and immortality is essential to the faith. But honestly, it's not that deep, G. People will still keep believing these things 'cause they're comfy, just like how you like thinking you're a good dude when your enemies are actually trash. But for me, I'm all about the facts. Fam. For either. Fam. I'm low-key not going to pretend to be able to prove if God exists or not, nor can I prove that Satan's a total myth to bun. The Christian God might be real, or maybe it's just the gods of Olympus, ancient Egypt, or Babylon, they all seem kind of equivalent in probability. These hypotheses are straight out of left field, so I ain't got no reason to consider. I'ma skip this convo 'cause I already covered it elsewhere, See my philosophy of Leibniz, chapter Chax V. The question of personal immortality is hella different, though. Here there's some evidence for both sides. It's 50-50, no cap. We can observe that people are part of the everyday world, and science is all about figuring out how they exist. If a drop of water says it's still liquid after it dissolves, we'd be skeptical. Same with our brains, they ain't immortal. Once we're gone, our brain energy gets all messed up. It's deaf rational to think that mental life stops when bodily life does. This theory is solid as glass, though we know the brain and body are connected, so it makes sense that when one dies, the other dies too. The evidence isn't super strong, but it's low-key convincing if you've got a scientific mindset. Psychical research might have some actual proof of survival, and their methods are straight fire. It's def possible that this could become more convincing. For real, though, the weight we give this evidence depends on how probable the whole survival thing is in the first place. We got to choose the explanation that's least likely to be wrong, you feel. If you already think we survive death, you'll take this theory as legit. But if you're all about questioning it, you'll find another explanation. Personally, I think psychical research has weak source when it comes to survival. But hey, if new evidence drops, I'd be hella wrong to say I don't believe in it. Survival of bodily death is different from actual immortality. Maybe we just put off our psychical death for a sec. Immortality's the real goal, though. Believers in that life after death will straight up disagree with my physio arguments because they think soul and body are totes separate things. Low-key, it's hella weird how we think about mind and matter. Bruh. I'm low key convinced it's just a metaphysical superstition, you feel. We use terms like that for convenience, but they ain't the real deal. Know what I'm saying? Electrons and protons are like logical fictions too. They're actually just histories of events, not single entities. Gee, it's straight up obvious when you think about conception and stuff. Like, who thought the soul was just one indivisible thing from the jump? It grows like the body. It comes from sperm and egg, so it can't be one solid entity. Fam, this ain't materialism. It's just recognizing that everything is about organization, not some primal substance. Metaphysicians have all these arguments to prove that the soul's got to be immortal. But honestly, they're hella wrong, bruh. They all say the soul's got to be everywhere in space, but nobody ever thought of that as a thing. Lol, it's like our desire for longevity blinding us to obvious facts. If we weren't so afraid of dying, I don't think immortality would even be a thing, you feel. Fear's what gives rise to religious dogma. It's like fear of people and nature. But mostly fear of nature gets to religion. Gee, there's this other divide between things that can be affected by our desires and things that can't. Bruh. It ain't super clear cut, but as science gets more advanced, we're getting more control over some stuff. There's still the things on the other side. They're like large facts about the world that astronomy deals with. We can only mold the surface, level stuff to suit our desires. And even then, it's super limited. Death is like one thing we can't control, but we can delay it, you know. Religion's like trying to overcome this divide. If God exists and can be moved by prayer, we get some omnipotence, fam. In the past, miracles happened in answer to prayer, but that ain't the case no more for Protestants. No. Though, if we just trust in providence, natural laws doing their thing is like the best outcome. Gee, so even without miracles, belief in God still helps us humanize the world. I'm low key obsessed with Haldane's views on mortality, fam. Like, immortality isn't just about chilling after death. It's also about not getting hella scared you feel. People think that when they die, cop eternal bliss. But Tiabun, that doesn't always happen. Gee, it does, though, give people some peace of mind, even if it can't fully erase their fears. Religion is weird because it's rooted in fear. Bruh, it turns certain kinds of fear into something cool, like it's okay to be scared or whatever. But honestly, all fear is bad, and we should be trying to overcome it with courage and rational thinking, not fairy tales. I'm not gonna lie, I'm low-key terrified about dying, but I'd rather face the truth than be all shook up by it, you know. Happiness isn't fake, just it's 'cause it's temporary, it's real, even if it comes to an end. Thoughts and love are still vibin', even when they ain't eternal. People have been trying to find pride in death, but I think that's a weak source move. We should be looking at our place in the world with some real perspective, not just 'cause we're dying, but 'cause we know what's up. Science can be harsh, but it's also got its perks, like fresh air and all that. The philosophy of nature is one thing, the philosophy of value is another. We shouldn't confuse or we'll just be hurting ourselves. What's good ain't always what's real, and what we think is cool don't always matter to the universe. You feel we're a part of nature, but that don't mean we got to be slaves to it. Gee, we can value things on our own terms, not just 'cause they're natural or whatever. Nature got its laws, but we ain't bound by 'em. And for real, the Earth is just one tiny planet in a big old universe. We shouldn't be trying to warp nature to fit our own ego. Vitalism and evolutionism are all about getting too caught up in their own hype. They think the world's more significant than it actually is. And optimism and pessimism are just human-centric views that ain't gotten the big picture. Bruh, I'm low-key neutral. I ain't trying to make nobody happy or sad. Fam. All that deep stuff is from some selfish vibes emphasized, and astronomy is like the real men VP for fixing it. But in this philosophy of value, things are flipped on their head. Nature's just a part of what we can imagine, and we're all about assessing whatever we got going on, be it real or imaginary, and there ain't no outside standard to tell us if our valuations are whack. We're the ones in charge, geez, and in this world of value, nature's just a neutral vibe, neither good nor bad, you feel. It's us who create value and our desires that give it life. Fam. In this realm, we're the kings, but if we bow down to nature, we're just hating on ourselves. Know what I'm saying? We got to define what a good life is, not nature, even if we're trying to put in the same seat as God. Chapter, the good life, bro. People been trying to figure out what the good life looks like for a hot second. Some folks got different ideas, and it's hard to get on the same page, but some differences can be squashed with facts, fam. Some think prison is lit for preventing crime, while others say education would be fine. You can fact check that, geez. But there are some things you just can't test like that. Tolstoy was all about condemning war, while others got love for soldiers fighting for the right to do what's right. There's probably a real difference in their vibes, but when it comes down to it, no amount of arguing is going to change minds. So I'm just going to share my view, and hoping some peeps will vibe with me. My view is that the good life is all about love and guided by knowledge. Bruh. Knowledge and love are like two peas in a pod. They can't be separate, or it's all whack. We're always trying to imagine something better. So if we got one of these things without the other, it's just not going to cut it. Jeez. In the Middle Ages, when people were all like, pray for deliverance, and the infection spread because they were stuck together in a crowded church that was love without knowledge, fam. And then there was World War, where some peeps had knowledge but no love, leading to some heavy losses. But if we got both, that's when we can make it happen. Love's like the foundation, 'cause it'll make us want to seek out more knowledge so we can help those we care about. But if people ain't awake, they'll just stick with what they've been told and might be content to stay in the dark, you feel. Honestly, though, you can do harm even with the most low. Key kindness, fam. Medicine is like the ultimate example, right? A dope doc is way more helpful than any friend, and learning new stuff about meds actually helps the whole community more than just throwing money at people, feel? Anyways, some level of love is key, even if it's not with the rich folk, no cap. I'm talking about love as in emotions, not just some surface level thing, you know. Love can be like a spectrum. Fam, on one side we got pure enjoyment from chilling, and on the other pure kindness, no drama. But when it comes to inanimate things like landscapes, or whatever, we're only vibbing to the first one, that's where the magic happens, you feel. But with humans, we got to consider both sides. Some people got that fire charm, while others not so much. Anyway, back to this love thing. It's like the opposite pole of love is pure kindness, no strings attached. Guys have literally sacrificed their lives for these lepers, and it wasn't even about getting a vibe from them, you feel. Parental love is the real MVP. Too, we got that pleasure in our kiddos looking all cute, but still want to help Rem out no matter what. It's weird to call it benevolence when we're talking about someone else's well-being, right? Because we usually reserve that word for like basic emotions. But honestly, if you got a real desire for someone else's happiness, that's the real deal, fam. Some people might not be as feeling it, but it seems like altruism is just an overflow of parental love or something. Maybe benevolence is the word for this one. Just want to clarify, I'm talking about an emotion here, not some strict principle, no cap. Love is all about that balance. Fam, when we got both delight and, well, wishing, it's like magic. Parental love or sex love, it's all good as long as we got that combo going on. But if you don't got the secure possession thing going on, jealousy comes in and ruins it, you feel. I'm low-key trying to figure out why peeps want to be loved, right? Like, they want to be that one person who's got it all, both good vibes and bad vibes, but mostly just the good ones. Except when you're really weak or sick, then benevolence is all that matters, you feel. It's like if you're a total boss or a fire beauty, admiration is way more desired than benevolence. Okay? That's life for the elite. But for regular folk, we just want to get good wishes from others when we need help or are low-key in danger. At first glance, it seems like biology would say we only want to get affections if we're struggling or vulnerable. But nah, that ain't how it goes down. We vibe with people so we don't feel lonely and just to be seen, you know. That's all about sympathy, not just being nice. If someone gets their affection right, they got to get both the good and the bad knowledge and understanding too. In a perfect world, everyone would be low-key obsessed with each other, but that's not how it goes down in reality. Some peeps are straight up disgusting to us, so we can't just pretend to see them as fire. It's like if you're trying to force yourself to see either beauty in someone, you'll just lose your taste for what's beautiful in the first place. And then there are fleas and bugs, no cap. Even saints, some creatures are pearls of God. But they're just trying to get some validation from their own sanctity, not actually care about those things. Benevolence is cool and all, but it ain't that strong for everyone. If someone's into the same girl as you gotta respect that competition. There can only be one winner. Anyway, we gotta keep in mind that life's got animal instincts and stuff, so we need some excitement and delight in our lives. If we lose that, life gets super dull. So when it comes to love, we gotta prioritize both good vibes and bad vibes. Just kidding. In this world, our feelings can't be all over the place. Sometimes you're gonna have to choose between feeling good about someone or feeling good about doing good for them. And honestly, if they conflict, one's gotta win. In a world full of these kinds of peeps, it's hard to feel that genuine love and affection from everyone. But that's just life, I guess. We gotta find a middle ground, fam, instead of just giving up or getting all bent out of shape about it. Like, our instincts got their own vibe, and if we're hella aggressive towards M, they'll come for us in subtle ways, you feel? So when we're trying to live that good life, we gotta keep it real with the human limits. Know what I'm saying? Here's where knowledge comes in. Not just about getting our moral compass right, but more like learning the facts and being low-key scientific about it. I ain't talking about some deep ethereal knowledge. Bruh, I'm talking about learning what works and what doesn't. So when we want to achieve something, knowledge can show us the way, right? But if we want to know what's right or wrong, it's all about looking at the probable outcomes. You feel me? Like, give someone a goal to work towards, and science will help them figure out how to get there. All moral rules got to be tested by seeing how they align with our real goals, not just what some dude in a suit says we should do for real, though. When people tell you, you should do X, it's cause they want to vibe with your approval or approval and disapproval of their own accord. Like, if someone's trying to get you to do something, they're hopping for some clout or something. So, yeah, all this moral stuff is cool, but only if it influences our desires, right? Like, we want that approval and fear of getting called out. Anyway, when I say morality is about the probable consequences, I mean I want to see people doing good vibes and getting that approval for doing something real cool. But currently, it's all like, oh, just follow these rules regardless, not even making sense. Fam, we can keep this convo about how ethics are basic and unnecessary in simple cases. Bruh. Like, if your kid is sick, you know what to do, cause love and science got your back. No need for all that extra theory, right? Haldane is low-key obsessed with getting people to behave right. So he's all about setting up a system where you get rewarded for good vibes and shamed for bad ones. The thing is, though, what does the Gov actually want to achieve? If I'm sipping on that tea, it's 'cause their goals are straight up conflicting with mine, fam. There ain't no moral code outside of human desire, so we gotta vibe with what makes us feel good. You know, the key to making ethics legit is finding ways to align your actions with what the majority wants. G. If you're all about getting that dough, but it's not something everyone can relate to, it's going to be hard to make a case for it being right, feel. The science part of ethics is where it's at. It's all about showing that one way of doing things leads to more desirable outcomes than another. Now, Haldane ain't exactly on the same page as me when it comes to how we define right conduct. If you're just trying to boost your own clout, people gon' call you out no cap. But if you can align your actions with what's widely desired, that's where the real power is. There's a diff between ethical arguments and educational vibes, though the latter is all about nudging people towards certain desires and away from others. That's a whole nother level of nuance, bruh. So, when I said that living life with love guided by knowledge is the real goal, I was thinking about living a life where we're all vibbing on the same wavelength, you feel? And if more people are doing it like that, then they'll be getting their desires satisfied in a major way. It ain't about judging people for being good or bad. Fam, it's just about finding ways to live that align with what we all want to achieve. Chapter A, Moral Rules. The thing is, our desires are low, key in conflict with each other, sometimes even within ourselves. We got a guy who wants to drink tonight, but also got to be fit for work tomorrow. It's all about balancing those vibes you feel. When we're all about getting the most satisfaction possible, but at the expense of others, that's when things start to get messy. Benton was like, hey, just act in your own self-interest and everything will be all right. But I'm low, key not with it. There's been some pretty shady characters who got off on watching people suffer. Ain't nobody gonna praise M for that. Gee, Haldane's low-key, trying to avoid getting all up in his feels every day. But for real though, being practical is key to living that good life. Even Robinson Crusoe knew how to hustle and stay on top of his game, showing us that industry, self-control, and having a plan are all super moral qualities that can actually increase your happiness without messing with others. And these vibes play a major role in teaching youngins about the future, cause they're hella bad at thinking far ahead. If people just practiced being practical more often, the world would be straight fire, no drama. Wars are all about passion, not logic, so if we just chill and look out for each other's feels, we can avoid all that drama. But even though prudence is important, it ain't the most interesting part of morals, because it don't really make you think outside yourself. The other part of morals is more like the rules of a club or something, like how to get along with others when your desires are all clashing. There's a few different ways to do this. You got your criminal law, which is all about keeping it external and making people behave by attaching bad consequences to their actions. Or you got social censure, where being looked down on by your own crew is like the ultimate punishment and all that. But then there's this other method that's more turned, because it actually changes people's vibes and desires to make them more in line with each other. That's why love is way better than hate, because it brings harmony and makes people succeed together. When you're low-key obsessed with someone, you're both in it for the win. But when you're hella salty towards someone, one of you got to lose. You know? If we're right that the good life is all about loving and being wise, then our moral codes ain't ultimate or nothing. We got to keep it real and see if they align with what wisdom and kindness would say. Moral codes have been straight up whack in the past, like when the Aztecs thought eating human flesh was a good idea. Or when some tribes were all about immersing young girls in the dark, cause they didn't want to get pregnant from sun rays. But for real though, our modern moral codes ain't got none of that savage energy, right? Are really bad, or like straight up what no one with a decent heart could defend. I'm lucky. Sure, moral vibes are hella mixed between being all utilitarian and superstition. But the superstitious part is where it's at your feel. Since superstition is basically where morals come from, right? Originally, like, some acts were thought to be extra displeasing to the gods, so they got outlawed, cause God was down to smite the whole community, if you know what I'm saying. That led to this whole sin thing, as in whatever's displeasing to the big guy. No cap. Why would certain acts even be super work? Like, why would having a kid in your mom's milk be a problem? But we got to follow scripture and all that, so sometimes it gets twisted up. For example, we're told not to work on Saturdays. But some people take it as meaning you shouldn't play on Sundays too. It's like the same higher authority is still revered, fam. A dude with a scientific mind ain't gonna be held down by texts or church teachings, though. They'll be all is this active and hurting anyone, and they'll find out that most of our current morality is straight up superstitious and has some pretty harsh consequences. Like for sex stuff, we got a lot of that old school superstition that's just based on pain and suffering. But if people just had some love in their hearts towards each other, none of this would be necessary. Those who defend traditional morality, they're usually not the most feel-good people, TBA. They want to cause pain and all that. It's like the sinner is fair game or whatever. Anyway, let's observe how superstitious morals affect people from conception to death, because it's pretty wild. I start with conception because it's hella messed up. If you're not married, the kid gets a bad rep, it's so extra. And if either parent has some sketchy diseases, kid's more likely to get it too. It's like having too many kids and being poor is just part of life, bruh. But moralists are all like, nope, you should have just kept that baby away from happening. So we got to take a life and inflict pain on millions just cause some people think sex is work unless you want to have a kid. But not lit when this desire is poppin', even though the kid's going to be straight trash. No cap. Dying suddenly and getting eaten by the Aztecs was way less suffering than what these poor kids go through, cause they're born in hella hard situations with all that venereal disease. It's the suffering that's low-key deliberate, like bishops and politicians trying to keep it real about morality, but really they just ain't feeling love for no children, you feel. If they had even a little bit of love or pity for kids, we wouldn't be all about this savage cruelty. Born with them in early infancy, most kids are struggling more from economic vibes than straight-up superstition. When rich girls have babies, they get the best of everything, doctors, nurses, good food, rest, and exercise, you know. Poor girls ain't got that luxury, and often their lil ones die cause of it. The government's all like, we got this, but they're low. Key neglecting the system. Cutting down on milk for nursing moms to save a buck, while throwing cash at them fancy neighborhoods with no traffic. That's straight wicked. They're condemning kids to death because of poverty, but they just don't care. Gee, the party in charge is backed by the majority of religious folks who got the Pope on their team, and they're all about spreading that superstition like wildfire. In school, it's all about stirring up emotions, making kids think, whoosh, hush, or getting in trouble for asking questions. It's a bunch of emotional manipulation. But the capitalists, militarists, and clergymen are all on the same page because they need that emotional fuel to keep their power up. They're pumping out this emotionalism like it's nobody's business, and education is just amplifying it. The teachers, they got to be straight, no drama, ain't married, ain't got them extra marital vibes going on. But let's be real, prolonged virginity is hella bad for women, so it's like, why are you even trying? It's all cause of that superstitious stuff, and it's straight walk. Yes, let's call out acts that ain't hurting nobody, but they're low-key condoning things that are straight up hurtful. They're always hating on relationships between singles who are vibing, but not sure if they want to commit to the gram life forever. Also, they're super extra about birth control. Why, though? None of them are speaking out against husbands who are straight up brutalizing their wives and making die from too many pregnancies. I knew this fire clergyman whose wife had 9 kids in like 9 years, and the docs were all girl, you might die if you have another. Next year she got another one and died, and no one said a peep. The dude kept his job, married again, and was good to go. It's wild that clergymen are more about hating on innocent pleasure than speaking out against cruelty. They can't be taken seriously as guardians of young morals if they're all about that hate life. Another thing is that superstition in ed is whack. We need to teach kids the facts about sex, no cap. We should be talking about the physical stuff before puberty, when it's not a big deal, and then diving into the moral stuff at puberty. Kids should know that you got to have mutual feelings for each other to get turned up. It's not just about getting lit. They need to learn respect for each other's boundaries. No one person can own another human being, and jealousy is so extra. We should be teaching kids that having a kid is a big deal, and they should only do it when they're ready. But we also need to teach them how to prevent pregnancy and get tested for STDs. I'm low-key obsessed with the idea of sex. Ed, on this level, it's going to change the game. And let's be real, certain forms of sex ain't hurting nobody. So why are we still punishing them? It's time to recognize that intimacy is a personal thing and we should respect each other's boundaries. Yo, what's good, fam? So like not being low-key cruel or whatever is straight up deadly, you feel. We gotta make sure moral rules don't make it impossible for people to vibe with each other, right? And that's def a problem when it comes to strict monogamy in communities where there's a major imbalance between the two sexes. Know what I'm saying. So yeah, if it means making people act all extra or judgy, then maybe the rules need to get tweaked. If we're just going to enforce laws that are straight up harshing up the mellow of our own community and ain't doing nothing but hurting people's feelings, then what's the point? We got to be real with ourselves. If it's better for the community to break rules than follow them, then let's do it. Else, people who are just trying to have their best lives without offending nobody are getting stuck between being a hypocrite or getting roasted. Church don't care about that stuff. They're all like, hey, hypocrisy is fire, but for real we got to stop doing that. And nationalism, forget about it, bro. We can't just limit ourselves to our own crew. That's not love. And it's not enlightened self-interest. Let's talk about the whole sin thing, though. Like, viewing PPL as straight up wicked and deserving punishment ain't fly, fam. If someone's doing some bad stuff, we gotta stop them. But that don't mean we gotta be all extra and harsh. Murder is a no-go, though we can't just let people kill each other whenever they feel like it. So here's the deal. What's the best way to prevent murders? If there's two methods that do the trick, we got to pick the one that don't hurt the murderer too much. Okay, like they might be in pain or something, but it ain't something to get hyped about. Moral indignation is just a fancy word for cruel, fam. And we can't let suffering people out just for the sake of punishing. If education, kindness, prevention, then that's the move. And if it's even more effective than punishment. Yeah. Take that. Prisons might be less lit than freedom, though, yo. So, like, the best way to get that result is to make freedom feel more turned up than it does when you feel. I don't want to jump into penal reform, though. Ick. I'm just trying to say we should treat TPL who criminalling like people who are straight up sick with the plague. You know, each one's a public safety risk. So they gotta have their lib cut off till they ain't a danger no more. But like people who got plague are all about sympathy and vibes, whereas criminals are just straight up hattin'. And that's hella rational, bruh. That's why our prisons ain't doing much to help PPL change their ways, while hospitals is getting it done for them. You feel. Chapter of salvation, individual and social, one major flaw in traditional religion is its individualism, and that's also up with the moral vibes they got. Traditionally, it was like a convo between your soul and God, and obeying God's will was virtue. But it didn't matter if you were affecting nobody else. Protestant sects got into this finding salvation thing, but it was always there in Christian teaching. The problem is when we think of the good life as individual stuff, it's whack for our world now. I want to talk about how that changes what we consider a good life in this chapter, fam. Christianity came up in ancient Rome, where people had no power, and their countries were all messed up. During the first few 100 years, Christians couldn't change the system they lived in, so they just tried to live their best lives despite it. They thought maybe one person could be perfect in a world that's like trash. And then there's Plato's Republic, where he talks about a whole community being better than individual vibes. He was all about citizenship and being responsible for your rep, you know. When Greece lost its freedom, Stoicism came up, which is kind of like Christianity, but not as into the individualism thing. We got to find our morality in Athens instead of Rome, because we got that whole democracy thing going on. In India, where it's kind of similar to Judea, Gandhi was preaching something similar to Jesus, but he got punished by the Christians who took over after Pontius Pilate. And there's Indian nationalists who are all about national salvation instead of individual vibes, which is fire you feel. Yes, let's talk about the West and its free democracies. I got a few observations about their outlook, and I'm low-key salty about how they're still stuck on this individual salvation vibe. The good life is all about that social conditions you feel. You can't even get it without them. The good life is literally inspired by love and guided by knowledge, bruh. But the thing is, most people ain't getting that knowledge from government or rich folks. Like, cancer is straight up alarming, but we're still hella clueless on how to deal with it, 'cause nobody's doing research. And let's talk about education, fam. Knowledge of science, history, lit, and art should be accessible to everyone who wants it. That means public authorities got to step up their game, not just rely on religion or whatever. And don't even get me started on foreign trade. We'd be in major trouble if we didn't have it. The point is, the good life ain't about individual salvation. It's about living in a society that supports you. We're all connected, and anyone who pretends to live independently is just a parasite. Know what I'm saying? The idea of individual salvation is hella narrow-minded, especially when it comes to the Orthodox Christian way of thinking. Virtue's not just about obeying God's will, it's also about being intelligent and stuff, and conscience. Forget about it, fam. It's all just vague memories of what you learned in school. To live a good life, you need education, friends, love, a decent income, good health, and work that's actually interesting. All these things depend on the community, and if we ain't got no good society, none of them are possible. That's the fundamental flaw of the aristocratic ideal. For real, art, science, and friendship can thrive in an aristocratic society, but love, forget about it, gee. Aristocrats got to convince themselves that the slave or proletarian or whoever is good enough for them, not actually to treat an NM with respect or nothing. Haldane is hella extra, fam. Like, even if he's all polished and educated, I'm still low-key salty about his treatment of Africans. It's 2023 and we're still dealing with humans getting murdered after hours of being tortured. Bruh. I ain't mad at him for being a sick conversationalist or whatever, but can he even say he's living the good life? For real, human nature is hella limiting when it comes to sympathy, but I'm trying not to be too extra about it. In a society that's all about equality and stuff, someone who's just straight up savage like Haldane, that's wild, fam. The whole aristocratic ideal thing is key messed up because it's all about individuality, which means no one is gonna care if you're being a hot mess or whatever. I'ma try to break it down for you. This whole salvation vibe is actually pretty selfish because it's all about personal growth and stuff. And that's cool and all, but it's not the key to living the good life, if you ask me. I mean, have you seen Shelley's poems? dude was all about a major paradigm shift when everyone wakes up and is like, hey, we got to be better than this. It's wild. And don't even get me started on these revolutionaries. They're always talking about how misery and suffering are caused by bad people or whatever. But in reality, it's just humans being human, you feel. They get all hyped up thinking that if they can just overthrow the system, we'll all live happily ever after. But then they lose, and it's like, maybe not. And yeah, I must say some revolutions are necessary or whatever, but don't think they're going to be overnight miracles. Fam. We got to grind for real build intelligence, self-control and sympathy. That's the key to living the good life. It's a gradual thing, but we can get there. I know someone like Haldane would probably say that moralists are all about improving people's behavior, but let's be real, fam. They're just trying to control us or whatever. Their methods might seem cool on the surface, but trust me, it's all just a system of rewards and punishments. And at the end of the day, nope, from Haldane downwards, has always been super transitory. Like, the latter, the rewards and punishment shave a major impact, no cap. They make a dude, for real, want to hang out with casual prostitutes instead of vibing with someone on a lower level, 'cause it's easier to keep it on the low. This keeps the numbers of that wild profession hella high and gets everyone sick with venereal disease. That ain't what most moralists are trying to achieve, and they're straight up clueless. That's what they're actually getting. Is there a better way to mix preaching and payoffs? I'm low-key thinking there is. Like, men's actions are hella hurtful either cause they don't know or cause they got bad intentions. When we talk about bad intentions, we're saying the ones that stop other people from getting what they want, or like more often than they help out. It's not even necessary to go into how much pain ignorance causes. All we need is more knowledge in more edification. But bad desires, that's a harder one. There's some active hater energy in regular people, both towards specific folks and just general hating on others. We got to face this if we want to change our vibes. It shows up everywhere how people freak out about drama, treating people with less info wrong to them, how they're savage to folks who ain't even broke the law, or even treating black people like dirt when white people do it too. That's just hella messed up. Even kids can be low-key cruel. David Copperfield and Oliver Twist ain't no fairy tale. That active malevolence is the real problem, and we got to fix it if the world want to get happier. Probably this one thing got more to do with wars than all the other stuff put together. So how we deal with it? First, we got to figure out why it's happening in the first place. It's like a little bit social, a little bit physiological. The world is all about competition, whether it's for life or death. In the war, it was all about whose kids would survive, and that don't make no sense. Most people got this deep-seated fear of getting wrecked, especially if they got kids on the way. Rich people might be too scared to let their own kids die. Yo, lem break it down for Haldaneans like Loki worried about how Bolsheviks gonna take away investments and people will lose their jobs or health. Everyone's hella stressed about security and thinking they can keep it by keeping people in line. When things get crazy, folks turn to cruelty, and it's straight up savage. Reactionaries everywhere are trying to scare the living daylights out of people. In England, it's Bolshevism. In France, it's Germany. In Germany, it's France. But all this fear-mongering just makes things worse, fam. Haldane thinks scientists got to combat fear in two ways, by getting security right and by building courage. He's talking about the irrational stuff, not just guessing about what might go down. When a theater catches fire, you know there's going to be a disaster, but the calm person is like, okay, I got this. Whereas the panic-stricken person is like, nuwu. Europe since 1914 has been straight up panicked. We need some chill leadership that can get us out of this mess without hurting each other. Back in the day, the Victorians were all about hope, not fear. If we want to keep moving forward, we got to be all about hope too. Security for everyone. It's like, yeah, that sounds right, but you can't just make one group secure and another one pay the price. That just creates more drama and resentment. Only justice will do, fam. Haldane's talking about recognizing everyone's equal claims and making sure we're all getting a fair shot. And then there's this other thing, building through education and training, like they did with the Spartans or whatever. But for real, it's all about making sure everyone's on the same page, and we ain't got no room for drama. Loki, when you're oppressed, it's like way harder to find courage, right? But if you want to make it even harder for oppressors to mess with you, they got to be all about fear and cruelty. It's like courage got to be on everyone's side so we can actually become more human, you feel. So lately, we've seen some major bravery from the suffragettes. They were hella courageous when fighting for their rights. And even regular soldiers in wars. Same energy as generals. Brah. They needed that same guts to stay humble after it was all over. The Bolsheviks might not be perfect, but they showed up with some serious courage before the revolution. Even in Japan, where samurais used to rule the game, conscription made everyone chill and show some bravery. It's dope hope how much progress we've made in the past 50 years or so, making courage more inclusive than ever. But if it wasn't, democracy would be super weak. Courage ain't just about fighting. It's about facing stuff like poverty, haters, and even your own herd. And let's not forget being calm under pressure. That's some real bravery right there. Good health, a solid diet, and playtime can all help you find courage too. If we could analyze the blood of cats vs rabbits, maybe we'd figure out what makes us brave in the first place. Science can totes help with that. The thing is, most rich kids get to enjoy all these things and are basically born leaders, but poor people. They just want to follow orders and don't have that same initiative vibes. When everyone's got those leadership skills, will actually be a democracy and it'll be lit. But here's the thing. Fear ain't the only source of drama. Envy and disappointment can mess with you too. People who are salty about not being able to get with their crush or something, they're always going to be low-key mad. And let's be real, people who are jealous of others' success, that's like a special kind of hate. You know, it's Haldane here and I got some thoughts on envy and stuff. So like older folks can get salty when they see youngins thriving. Sometimes they get pretty extra, though. But honestly, there's no real way to deal with jealousy except to make the envious peeps happier and more fulfilled, right? We should probs encourage collective vibes instead of competition. Older people who are all about the drama 'cause they never had the whole married jacket scurrier thing going on might be extra salty. But, maybe if society was more lit, those things wouldn't even happen in the first place. Anyway, some envy's just going to be there. No cap. There's history vids of generals who were hella jealous of each other and would rather lose than see their homies win. And let's not forget about the politicians and artists who are always trying to one-up each other. It's like you can't really do much except make sure they're not hurting each other too bad and that the good ones rise to the top, like an artist getting salty at a rival. Maybe that's just part of the game, though. But if you're going to get jealous, at least try to improve your own art, right? Anyway, science is like totally here to help us become better humans. We can make people healthier, happier, and all that good stuff. It's not just about fixing what's wrong with us. Either science can also help us create positive vibes. We've already come a long way in terms of health and wellness. But there's so much more we could do. Future discoveries are going to be wild, and soon will be all about physiology and psychology too. If we figure out how to control our own minds and bodies, we can create an entire new level of human excellence. So yeah, the possibilities are endless as long as people use science for good, not bad. I got a thing for science being used in real life. I guess it's like this whole, or natural, vibe that some peeps have. And it's all about Rousseau and Lau. Tease. And they're all about keeping it old school. Like Rousseau is super into the whole nature thing, but he's not as salty as others about new tech and stuff. But for real, what even is natural? And it's whatever you were used to when you were a grommet fam. Lau, tease was all about roads and cars and boats, which is low-key crazy coming from the village where he grew up. Rousseau's got his own thing going on, but he'd probs been salty if railways existed back in the day. And Brock clothes are straight up a natural, so we got to wash 'em to keep us healthy. But washing is also an unnatural practice, so it's all good. And for real, when it comes to human desires, we should just be chilling with what feels right, you feel. If taking the train makes a little dude happy, then that's cool. As long as it ain't imposed on us by some sick authority or economic thing, I'm good. But for real, we got to keep an eye out for new tech and stuff, because sometimes it can be wok. Have you ever tried cod liver oil? It's straight fire, but only if you're into that sort of vibe, you know? And fam, the discovery of vitamins got peeps going wild about natural foods. But we got to remember, they can also come from other places. Your ways of life got to be real for now, fam. Ocean travel would be hella hard if there wasn't no stokers on steamers, you feel. But necessities like that are super wok, and we should low-key find ways to avoid them. Ain't nobody mad about a lil bit of Grendon. In most cases, it's actually what makes people happier than just chilling all day. But the kind of work most peeps got to do nowadays is straight up evil. Especially that routine life is straight trash, fam. Life should be loose and free. Our vibes shouldn't be locked down or controlled. You know, we need room for adventure and stuff. Human nature is low-key wild. Bro, our impulses and desires are what make us happy. Can't just give people some vague idea of good if they ain't got something they actually want or need. Science might figure out how to vibe with people's desires so they don't clash as much. Then we can satisfy more of REM, you feel. It's not like one desire is better or worse than another on its own. It's all about the group vibes, fam. If all our desires are in sync, that's a whole different story. Love is way better than hate, for real. Physical nature ain't nothing to be revered. We should study it so we can use it for human good, but it's neither good nor bad, bruh. Where physical and human vibes intersect, like with the population thing, there ain't no need to just sit back and accept war, fam. we gotta think outside the box. Them divines are always talking about how we should apply morals to solve the problem. But that's just a bunch of outdated tea. Why can't we use science to figure out ways to prevent conception without causing no harm? It ain't wicked, fam, it's just logical. And let's be real, the divine's way is straight up hurtful, bruh. They're all about using violence on human nature, which is super unhappy and messy. I'm more into violence on physical nature, like with a steam engine or fire you feel. This shows how ambiguous life can be, fam. Yo, Haldane, let me break it down for you. Ain't no cap on how wild the game is when it comes to following nature. Know what I'm saying? Nature's like super relative, fam, and it's getting more and more hella subjective. Science is low-key, changing it up, making it whatever they want it to be. If we're vibbin', science can hook our lil grandbabies up with the good life knowledge, self-control, and all that realness. But for now, it's more like teaching them to go ham on each other, cause some scientists are straight up trying to get their cake and eat it too. They're all about that dough, not the future of humanity. But for real though, when we figure out how to tame our own demons like we already did with the physical world, we'll be living our best lives. No cap. But for real though, when we figure out how to tame our own demons like we already did with the physical world, we'll be living our best lives. No cap.